Right now.
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 Because it's time to right now.
Right now.
Right.
Right now.
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 Because it's time to right now.
Right now.
Right.
Right now.
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 Right.
Welcome to a daily writing session as I'm and we're going to work on the drafts of our stories. I'm working on the third draft of Scarecrow, and I'm showing you my process as I do a live reading and a line edit. Really, my goal is to fix style because I'm getting this part of the book ready for alpha beta readers so we can close that loop, get feedback, and I can reach my goal of getting the book published May 15th. So come join as we entered into this co-working session. By the way, welcome. I'm Kaufman, daily writing streamer, fantasy author, dragon enthusiast. And we're going to be hopping right into it. I know I'm super excited for this next chapter. Yesterday's chapter was a little bit more of a challenge in it. Revision. So we will see just how today's chapter goes. I think this chapter is actually very, very heartwarming. So we'll see. Let's get into it. Let's see what we see. All right. So as you can see here, I have my system software all set up as usual. Hey, what's up, Janine? Welcome, my friend. Hopefully the writing vibe is treating you well today. Hopefully good writing vibes all around. Let's see. So yeah, I feel like this chapter, I remember when I originally wrote it, this was a chapter that I added in the last draft because I realized my next major character needed a bit more of a setup, and it came out very, very heartwarming. I remember going through this the last time. I was like, wow, chapter came out very heartwarming. I wasn't even intending for a heartwarming moment at this part of the book, and yet it just came out that way. I'm like, yes, what a great way to tie in a very special moment before things get more difficult for our heroes. All right. So for those of you who were here yesterday, our heroes just escaped another was it a trap, another obstacle, another strange character, another strange instance in this world, the lands of the last. And they are still stuck in the forest. Scarecrow and friends are trying to figure out how to go upon their mission. Scarecrow's on a journey to reach the graveyard of the last, because supposedly that has a weapon that will help him stop the first demon. So he has teamed up with Mr. Crow and Pebble the Pixie, as they are now still trapped in the forest. So let's see just what they see. Chapter 19, For True Love. Mr. Crow dropped them upon the far edge of the muck. As he landed on the ground, winded, Pebble hopped off on a nearby stump, hands in cloak pockets, like it was the only solace in the world. Scarecrow was surprised to land steadily on one leg. He stretched out old Lefty, feeling more well-rested than he had since waking up in his field. Scarecrow was surprised to land steadily on his one leg. He stretched out old Lefty, feeling more well-rested than he had since waking up. Since waking up. First things first. Dropping the living sack to the ground, mouth still incognito, he unfurled the string from around the top, checking inside for its contents. Thankfully, everything was safe. This bag was surprisingly resilient. He patted the side of the thick material as the mouth, with its carnivorous fangs, chomped at his hand. He pulled it away, barely. Duly noted. He fished his right arm out of the bag, bringing it to his chest in a fierce one-armed hug. He fished his dislodged right arm out of the bag, bringing to his chest in a fierce one-armed hug. With a sigh of relief, Scarecrow tried to recall how Mr. Crow had attached his arm back in the ice shelter. Glancing over at his feathered friend, glancing over at the crow, he shook his head at how much it felt like they had gone through since then. Glancing over at the crow, he shook his head at how much it felt like they had gone through since then. He shook the coat off his shoulder. Glancing over at the crow, he shook his head at how much they had gone through since. He shook the coat off his shoulder and placed his left arm into the socket. He watched intently as strands of straw connected with the empty socket, weaving itself. Let's see. He watched intently as strands of straw connected with the empty socket, weaving. I guess weaving themselves probably would. Weaving themselves. He watched intently as strands of straw connected with the empty socket, weaving around the arm. He watched intently as strands of straw connect with the empty socket, tying, reconnecting in place. He watched intently as strands of straw connected with the empty socket, pulling the arm, lodging the arm fully in place until it was connected once more. He watched intently as strands of straw connected with the empty socket, lodging the arm fully in place until it was connected once more. This should be a new paragraph. All right, so Scarecrow shook the coat off his shoulder and placed his left arm into the socket. He watched intently as strands of straw connected with the empty socket. Scarecrow shook and placed his left arm into the socket. He watched intently as strands of straw connected with each other, pulling his limb closer. He watched as strands of straw connected together. He watched intently as strands of straw connected together, lodging the arm fully in place until it was connected once more. Lifting his right forearm felt like a test of strength. Lifting his right forearm felt like a test of strength. He wriggled his fingers. He wiggled, or wriggled. Is wriggled a word? Like wriggled is... Yeah, he wiggled his... All right, let's go. He flexed. Flexing his fingers, he smiled. With the flex of it, flexing his fingers, he flexed his fingers, smiling. 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 Yeah, I like that. Hey, what's up, LeMay? Welcome, my friend. Hopefully all is treating you well. Despite everything they had gone through, what did he really know about himself, though? All right, so we're doing a little bit of reflection. Despite everything he had gone through, though, what did he really know about himself? What did he really know about himself yet? The roughness of his wooden palms. We don't need that. Let's go. Let's make this the shockwave in the ice home that changed Mr. Crow. What other instances do... Okay, so what instances where I have Scarecrow feeling magical-esque? All right, so I went back and it felt similar. So I went back because he's doing like a little reflection here. Hey, what's up, Corner? Hey, I finally figured out a huge plot point so I can finish the last 17,000 words. Probably go over, but it will finally be a full novel. Happy dance. Yes, Courtney, that is what's up. Congrats, my friend. That's actually a huge accomplishment. Hey, what's up, Vomika? Welcome. Let's see. Okay, so I had to. Okay, so we're working on some reflecting right now, and I think I needed a slight adjustment. So, all right. Scarecrow shook the coat off his shoulder and placed his left arm into the socket. He watched intently as strands of straw connected together. As strands of straw weaved. Ooh, weaved is better. As strands of straw weaved together, lodging the arm fully in place until it was connected once more. Lifting his right forearm felt like a test of strength. He flexed his fingers, smiling. Two hands once more. He flexed his fingers, smiling. Two hands, two arms, two hands once more. Despite everything he had gone through, he gazed, he stared at his palms, at his wooden palms, as he stared at his wooden palms as his smile. Let's go. Scarecrow stared at his wooden tree-like palms, at his wooden. Let's just go wooden. At his wooden palms as his smile deflated, as his enthusiasm deflated. Scarecrow stared at his wooden palms as his enthusiasm deflated. Despite everything he had gone through, what did he really know about himself yet? The shockwave in the ice home that changed Mr. Crow, alerting... let's go. He recalled the shockwave in the ice home that changed Mr. Crow, alerting the last robot to their presence. And then that strange moment in the dream that wasn't a dream with Pebble. And then that strange moment in the dream that wasn't a dream. with Pebble. What was that? It felt similar in nature, but he didn't understand. And how long had it been? He glanced up at the sky through the treetops, barely making out the sun overhead. 4, 5, or even 30 rotations for all he knew. He sighed. On autopilot, he retrieved his leg from the sack and threaded it into the pants opening. Using both arms, he held his leg firmly against his lower waist and shivered at the same strange tingling sensation while the straw rewove itself. Well, he assumed. The straw rewove itself. And I think that's clear. Scarecrow trembled with a final sigh of relief as he wiggled his toes. Didn't he have a boot on before? He noticed the boot firmly on his left foot was absent from the newly reattached right one. He has one boot. I forgot about that. On autopilot, he retrieved his leg from the sack and threaded it into the pants opening. Using both arms, he held his leg firmly against his lower waist and shivered at the same strange tingling sensation while the straw rewove itself. Scarecrow trembled with a final sigh of relief as he wiggled his toes. Didn't he have a boot on it before? He noticed the boot firmly on his left foot was absent from the newly attached right one. Looking up, Pebble and Mr. Crow lay side by side on their chests and arms, propped up, watching him. What if your head comes off? Pebble asked. Scarecrow chuckled. I don't know, but I am not eager to find out. Heads will roll, Mr. Crow chortled. The two of them eyed their feathery companion with a sideways eye roll, even though Pebble smirked. So, the Pebble drew out, you remember nothing about your scarecrow ways? He shook his head, even though the boy in the red beanie. He shook his head, pushing down. He shook his head, pushing down the image. He shook his head, pushing away the thoughts of the boy in the red beanie. The images of his blood-soaked hands whispered at him in the recesses of his mind. The image of his blood-soaked hands taunted him in the recesses of his mind. In the crevice, in the cracks, stuttering, in the recesses. The image of his blood-soaked hands taunted him in the corners of his mind, in the back of his mind. The image of his blood-soaked hand taunted him. The image of his blood-soaked hands taunted him in the in the recesses, in the back of his mind. Stuttering, Scarecrow asked, I see you two have become friends. Pebble hopped to her feet and punched Mr. Crow in the shoulder. Yeah, right. I'd rather eat a fae. With a slight head turn, gray and black pupils flickering and eyes wide, Mr. Crow whispered, friends are food. Scarecrow picked up the pixie before they could go at each other. One could only hope. Friends, he muttered under his breath. Was that what they were? Somehow I feel closer to the both of you. Somehow I feel closer to feel closer to you both. Somehow I feel closer to you both after that dream. Well, whatever that was. Blech. Pebble covered her mouth while enacting a barfing motion. Throw me back in the lake. I'd rather drown. Scarecrow eyed her. I believe you owe us a story. Pebble crossed her arms. Fine, but Pebble looked around frantically. After Birdbane, Pebble stuttered, looking around frantically. Pebble stuttered, looking around frantically. After Birdbrain stops making all that noise. They peered down at Mr. Crow, attempting to figure out what was in the bird's mouth. That's not mine, Scarecrow said. Is that a map? Pebble blurted out before him. Scarecrow yanked it out of the bird's mouth, out of the crow's mouth, or what was left of it. Mr. Crow humbly didn't seem to mind, as he went for a passing worm instead. Holding it high above them, didn't seem to mind. Mr. Crow humbly didn't seem to mind going for... Mr. Crow didn't seem to mind going for a passing worm instead. Holding it high above them, let's see, Scarecrow, this is kind of 2. Holding it high above them. Okay, Scarecrow yanked it out of the crow's mouth. Scarecrow yanked, let's just go to the map. Scarecrow yanked the map out of the crow's mouth, or what was left of it anyway. Mr. Crow humbly didn't seem to mind, going for a passing worm instead. Holding it high above them was a torn, held above them. Scarecrow analyzed the torn piece of parchment. Analyzed a torn piece of parchment, the likes of which showed a beautifully hand-drawn portion of a forest with intricate details showing various trees, plants, and other things he didn't understand. Different shades of green made it feel vibrant and alive. However, its beauty was diminished by the multitude of crossed-out arrows, question marks, and strange words. Scratched largely across the forest was the word forest of, but the rest of the parchment was torn. Pebble pointed up ahead where another scrap of parchment lay. Scarecrow nodded as he retrieved it. This piece seemingly provided more detail of another section of the forest. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted another torn piece of parchment, and another that trailed further along the muck lake's edge. Even Mr. Crow trailed beside them, worms in mouth, curious to follow the trail. On they went, collecting scraps of torn parchment until they reached a furry paw, matted in muck. Let's go. Matted in muck. Even Mr. Crow trailed behind them, worms in mouth, curious to follow the trail. On they went, collecting scraps of torn parchment, until they reached a furry paw, matted in muck. Yeah, I mean matted. Is matted? I think that works. On they went, collecting scraps of torn parchment, until they reached a furry paw, matted in muck. Let's see, is matted the right word? Let's see, let's see if this works. Let's see. On they went, collecting scraps of torn parchment, until they reached a furry paw, matted in muck. We could go sticking out. Jutting. I could use jutting. Sticking out of the lake along the shore. On they went, collecting scraps of torn parchment, until they reached a furry paw, matted in muck. Jutting from the lake's edge. Sticking out of the lake. Jutting from the lake's edge. I was like, yeah, because I don't think it would be a shore. I don't think shore would be the right word. Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, matted is a word. Because matted is like covered. So I'm pretty sure matted does work. I'm just asking myself, like, is it clear enough, or do I need to do a different word? I think it works. Matted is like thick and covered with it. I'm just asking if it was clear. On they went, collecting scraps of torn parchment, until they reached a furry paw, matted in muck, jutting from the lake's edge. I think that works. Is that? Pebble trailed off as she hopped to the ground, kicking at the paw. Looking between the two of them, Scarecrow bent over. You don't think... As he reached out, Scarecrow bent over. You don't think... He I'll just go, he said. Scarecrow bent over. You don't think, he began as he reached out to grab the hand. He began, reaching out to grab the hand. This poor animal needs our help. Pebble swatted at his hand. You really want a chance helping whatever this thing is? For all we know, it's going to eat us or worse. Mr. Crow hopped between them and puffed his chest out. Young pixie, who are we to project our failures unto a world so desolate of hope? Mr. Crow hopped between them and puffed his chest out, speaking, his chest out. His tone suddenly changed to a deep, his tone suddenly changed to a deep, wise, changed. His tone suddenly, his, let's go, his tone and demeanor suddenly changed. Mr. Crow hopped between them and puffed his chest out. His tone, let's go, because his demeanor was made clear. His tone changed. His tone withered and changed to a voice ancient and beyond his years. Mr. Crow hopped between them and puffed his chest out. His tone became withered. His tone became withered and ancient. Let's go, withered and ancient. Well beyond his years. Mr. Crow hopped between them and puffed his chest out. His tone became withered and ancient. Actually, let's go weathered. I think weathered. Weathered and ancient, well beyond his years. Young pixie, who are we to project our failures unto a world so desolate of hope? He pecked at the sky with a nod, leaving Pebble at a loss for words. Hey, what's up, Melissa? Welcome, my friend. Aw, I appreciate you. I know, right? Mr. Crow, the real Mr. Crow comes out. I think that works actually really well. Pebble swatted at his hand. You really want a chance helping whatever this thing is? For all we know, it's going to eat us or worse. Mr. Crow hopped between them and puffed his chest out. His tone became weathered and ancient, well beyond his years. Young pixie, who are we to project our failures unto a world so desolate of hope? He pecked at the sky with a nod, leaving Pebble at a loss for words. Scarecrow shrugged. Maybe he wasn't the only one changed by the dream muck. Maybe he wasn't the only one changed by their recent adventures. Plus, Pebble, what if you were still in there? Would you really want a passerby to leave you? Pebble threw her arms in the sky, pointing at the both of them. Pebble threw her arms at the sky, pointing at them. You, Scarecrow, remember nothing of this world. It is not kind, and you, Birdbrain, at ease, young pixie. Our interests are aligned, Mr. Crow cawed before dropping to the ground to roll around in the dirt. Pebble smacked her head with a groan of frustration. Muttering something about a mother under her breath as she grabbed the paw and glanced back at Scarecrow. Well, wait any longer, and Paws here is going to be the one with the dream muck, and don't even get me started on that dumb flower. I think we can make that clear. Well, wait any longer. Well, wait any longer, and Paws here is a goner. They were interrupted by a distant. They were interrupted by soft singing, or by a crazed singing off in the distance. Pebble continued. And don't even get me started on that dumb flower. Oh, yeah, I speak to it here. Actually, let's split this up. I can make this a little clearer. Pebbles smacked her head with a groan of frustration, muttering something about a mother under her breath as she grabbed the paw and glanced back at Scarecrow. Well, wait any longer and pause here is a goner. A soft, fragmented melody whispered in the distance as Mr. Crow hummed along from his spot on the ground. And don't even get me started on that. And don't even get me started about that dumb flower. And don't even get me started about on that dumb flower. And don't even get me started on that dumb flower in the lake. Pebble finished. I think that's clear enough. Hey, what's up, Tiger? Welcome, welcome. You know what's funny, Cap, is Mr. Crow kind of does feel like he needs a monocle. He does feel like he needs a monocle at some point. That would like literally be perfect for his character, actually. I feel like I should add that at some moment. Hey, what's up, Tiger? Going pretty good. I'm working on a heartwarming. I'm working on, this is a very like heartwarming chapter. I'm introducing the next major character in Scarecrow. Oh, this is the chapter that I'm just currently revising. All right. Pebbles smacked her head with a groan of frustration, muttering something about a mother under her breath as she grabbed the paw and glanced back at Scarecrow. Well, wait any longer and pause here is a goner. A soft, fragmented memory whispered in the distance as Mr. Crow hummed along. From his spot on the ground, clearly returning to his previous state. And don't even get me started on that dumb flower in the lake, Pebble muttered. Scarecrow stumbled, bashing himself for getting lost in the moment. We don't need that. That's kind of Scarecrow. Let's see. Let's go this. You don't need that. Scarecrow shoved the scraps of parchment under. Scarecrow shoved the scraps of parchment under an arm. We don't need shove. Scarecrow held the scraps of parchment under an arm and grabbed hold of the paw. With a heave, he pulled at it. Even with Pebble's valiant assistance, it was a struggle. Scarecrow hopped as he stepped back, 1 foot at a time, dragging slowly but surely. Inch by inch, a form emerged from the muck. First the arm, then a shoulder, then a back, until Scarecrow stumbled and fell on the ground, pulling the animal the rest of the way out of the muck. Even though the animal was on the ground face first, it was obviously a bear. Not only was it drenched in muck, but it was massive. Patches of fur were missing along the shoulder blades. And back. Let's go along patches of fur were missing along the shoulder blades and back, paralleling a giant scar crisscrossed from one shoulder blade down to his lower leg. Down to there. It's because I don't know the gender yet. Down to there. Down to the bear's lower leg. Let's make sure it's clear. Even though the animal was on the ground face first, it was obviously a bear. Not only was it drenched in muck, but it was massive. Not only was the animal drenched in muck, but it was massive. Patches of fur were missing along the bear's shoulder blades and back. Paralleling a giant scar crisscrossed from one shoulder blade down to the bear's lower leg. Still on the ground, legs spread wide, Scarecrow leaned in and tapped the unconscious animal. Still on the ground, sitting and legs spread wide, Scarecrow leaned in and tapped the unconscious animal. Hello? Mr. Bear? The bear trembled and lifted his head. Wide hazel eyes The bear trembled and lifted his head. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. Set against white. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. Set against a white trail of fur. Actually, I want the same setup. So I actually described the bear very well. Give me just 1 second. We're at 276. I have to go find, because I already set up the bear in the last chapter. We're framed against a white streak. And I want this. All right. Even though inch by inch. Here we go. Wide his eyes cracked open, set against a white streak. All right, the bear trembled and lifted his head. Wide hazel eyes cracked open, set against a white streak of fur that trailed down to a broad snout spotted fur. Trailed down to a broad snout. The bear trembled and lifted his head. Wide hazel eyes. That's good. The bear trembled and. So I did kind of set that. The bear trembled and lifted his head. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. Actually, let's save that for a moment because I think we just focus on the eyes. I technically already set up the bear. Now we just have to connect. Bear with him for the moment. Cap. All right. Even though the animal was on the ground face first, it was obviously a bear. Not only was the animal drenched in muck, but it was massive. Patches of fur were missing along the bear's shoulder blades and back, paralleling a giant scar crisscrossed from one shoulder blade down to the bear's lower leg. Still on the ground, sitting and legs spread wide, Scarecrow leaned in and tapped the unconscious animal. Hello, Mr. Bear? The bear trembled and lifted his head. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. I remember. Hey, I remember you, Scarecrow. Scarecrow began. Actually, no. M dash works fine. Hey, I remember you, Scarecrow started. The bear sniffed the air and howled, with eyes encumbered by rage as his mouth widened, snarling. Pebble's words were lost as the bear leaped at Scarecrow, grabbed him by the neck, and roared, "What have you done with true love, demon?" The bear pressed Scarecrow to the ground, strangling him as the massive beast of an animal pushed him into the earth. He roared for all the forest to hear and lifted a muck-drenched paw into the air. Sharp, vicious claws protracted. Rage, fear, and bloodlust masked his golden brown and white fur streaked face. Rage, fear, and bloodlust. Oh, yeah, it's not that. Rage, fear, and bloodlust masked his golden brown. Rage, fear, and bloodlust masked his golden brown fur, making the white. Let's see. I was like, I don't. Rage, fear, and bloodlust masked his golden brown fur. The white hairs. Let's see. The white streak of fur trailing from his eyes, from the white streak of fur circling, fur trailing from his eyes to his snout, stood on edge. That might be too much. The bear pressed Scarecrow to the ground, strangling him as the bear pressed Scarecrow to the ground, strangling him as the massive beast of an animal pushed him into the earth. He roared. We have to be careful of our prepositions. The bear roared for all the forest to hear and lifted a muck-drenched paw into the air. Sharp, vicious claws protracted. Rage, fear, and bloodlust masked his golden brown fur. It's like, I really want to call attention to the white streak, but I'm not finding a good moment. Let's go here then before we touch on the eyes. The bear trembled and lifted his head. There was a noticeable white streak of fur. Let's go here. So I think this is it before we set up the eyes. A white streak of fur. A white streak of fur circled the eyes, trailing down to the snout. A white streak of fur circled the eyes, trailing down to the snout. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. The bear trembled and lifted his head. A white streak of fur circled the eyes, trailing down to the bear's snout. To his snout. The bear trembled and lifted his head. A white streak of fur circled his eyes, trailing down to his snout. Trailing down to the snout. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. Yeah, I think this is a little better. It's like I need to get the face. I've already set him up, but he was such a minimal. It was a minimal setup before. The bear trembled and lifted his head. A face masked in golden brown fur, dripping in muck. The bear trembled and lifted his head. His face was masked in golden brown fur, dripping with muck. The bear trembled and lifted his head. His face was masked in golden brown fur, dripping with muck. A white streak of fur circled his eyes, trailing down to the snout. A white streak of fur. I mean, I used fur twice, but a white streak of fur circled his eyes, trailing down to the snout. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. So I think this is fine. It's like a slightly different than before. The bear trembled and lifted his head. His face was masked in golden brown fur, dripping with muck. All right, so I think that fixes this beat. Let's see how it sounds. All right, so still on the ground, sitting and legs spread wide. Scarecrow leaned in. Yay! Okay, I'm glad. Cap, thanks for that. I'm glad that comes off with a battle mask, and that's exactly what it's supposed to be. That's exactly how it's supposed to come across. Still on the ground, sitting and legs spread wide, Scarecrow leaned in and tapped the unconscious animal. Hello, Mr. Bear? The bear trembled and lifted his head. His face was masked in golden brown fur, dripping with muck. A white streak of fur circled his eyes, trailing down to the snout. Wide hazel eyes cracked open. Hey, I remember, Scarecrow started. The bear sniffed the air and howled. I think howled is fine. With eyes encumbered by rage as his mouth widened, snarling. Pebble's words were lost as the bear leaped at Scarecrow, grabbing him by the neck and roared, "What have you done with true love, demon?" The bear pressed Scarecrow to the ground, strangling him as the massive beast of an animal pushed him into the earth. The bear roared for all the forest to hear and lifted a muck-drenched paw into the air, sharp, vicious claws protracted. Rage, fear, and bloodlust masked the bears. Rage, fear, and bloodlust masked. We don't need masked again now that we've added. Rage, fear, and bloodlust ripped across the bear's face. Rage, fear, and bloodlust ripped across the bear's face. Was strewn. Rage, fear, and bloodlust ripped. I think that can work. That creates the visual. The bear pressed Scarecrow to the ground, strangling him as the massive beast of an animal pushed him into the earth. The bear roared for all the forest to hear and lifted a muck-drenched paw into the air. Sharp, vicious claws protracted. Rage, fear, and bloodlust ripped across the bear's face. We use the bear a lot, so let's go the animal. The animal roared. All right. Even as Scarecrow struggled to breathe, he recognized that look, the anger, the fear, the confusion. It mirrored the looks of Pebble and Mr. Crow when he had first encountered them. As he choked and eyed those claws, he could only hope for the best because... Let's go M dash. Because he had to believe in something. Red beanie, blood, the dream, the bear. Scarecrow grabbed one of the scraps of parchment strewn on the ground, holding it. Scarecrow grabbed one of the scraps of parchment on the ground, from the ground. Scarecrow grabbed one of the scraps of parchment on the ground, holding it before the bear and wheezed. In one of your maps. All emotion evaporated from the bear's features, replaced by something else. The animal looked around, sniffed the air, and pushed himself off Scarecrow, nearly trampling the pixie. He lifted the scratch of parchment into the air, rubbed it against his chest, and peered at the lake as if realizing where he was. With a giant huff, he pressed his muzzle into both paws and trembled violently. Between heavings, he mumbled incoherently, apologies, sorry, in that manner for some time. Scarecrow grabbed his own neck. He shook in that manner for some time. Scarecrow grabbed... the Winnie the Pooh voice. He shook in that manner for some time. Scarecrow grabbed his own neck, sucking in air as he shared a glance with Pebble. Even Mr. Crow was on his feet, curious. Eventually, the bear stopped shaking as he whipped his face about, recollecting himself. That was a rather ungainly thing to do. Please allow this humble grizzly to begin again. The bear stood up on his hind legs, towering over them, especially Pebble, especially the pixie. The bear sniffed himself, nearly choking at... The bear nearly stiffed himself, gagging at the smell. Gagging at the stench, and shook off any remaining muck in one motion. The bear sniffed himself, gagging at the stench, and shook off any remaining muck in one motion. Scarecrow ducked under a blob of muck, while Pebble was showered in it, and Mr. Crow caught some in a mouthful, chewing thoughtfully. With very delicate and precise actions, he patted his chest. With very delicate and precise actions, the bear patted his chest and bowed deeply to each of them in turn. I am Gore, the last grizzly. My wanderings must have led me astray, and to this, he said, sniffing he said, sniffing over his shoulder. Lake. But what dreams I had. He grabbed Scarecrow gently by the shoulder. I explored the lands. He leaned down as low as he could go, eyeing the pixie, and traversed the stars. He patted Mr. Crow on the head, who appeared not to mind, and even savored in the delicacies of real sustenance. His stomach grumbled as he stepped back. But alas, even in such dreams, these lands are made no less kinder, save for you three. This grizzly is in your debts, Crow. He bowed before Mr. Crow, sharing a profound look before the bird. Sharing a profound look before the bird chomped down on his arm. The bear patted him and chuckled a deep, humble laugh. And Pixie, your kind have eye stories. Pebble crossed her arms and rolled her eyes, still shaking muck off herself. Still shaking muck off. Lastly, he turned to Scarecrow. And straw creature? I admit your kind I know not of. Standing up, Scarecrow chuckled. That makes two of us. This followed up. That makes two of us. Following up with a sigh. This followed up with a sigh. He followed up with a sigh. I'm Scarecrow. Pebble knocked on Scarecrow's foot until he picked her up. This is Pebble, and that's Mr. Crow. Yeah. Nice to know you. Now get lost, bear. Pebble tapped on Scarecrow's hand and pointed at her ear until he raised her to ear level so she could whisper. Yeah, nice to know ya. Now get lost, bear. Pebble tapped on Scarecrow's hand and pointed at her ear until he raised her to ear level so she could whisper. Their kind is dangerous. Don't trust this mutt. As if sensing the apprehension in the air, Gore threw out his paws to either side. Whilst strangers we may be, my debt is owed. I had a camp nearby. The bear patted himself down, searching for something. Might have a camp nearby. He searched more profusely while looking around and gathering the pieces of parchment on the ground. He licked a paw and raised it into the air, scanning the small patches of night sky that could be seen above the canopy. Come, I can offer sustenance and a tad bit of warmth in this abysmal place. We're not... Food is friend, Mr. Crow cawed as he flew onto Gore's shoulder, already along for the ride. Scarecrow glanced down at Pebble and shrugged. They followed the bear away from the lake of muck, but not before Scarecrow could retrieve the living sack and sling it over his shoulder. Whispering in his ear, Pebble said, Don't forget our deal. I take you to the brazier, and you cough up the gemstone. I also recall a certain pixie promised me the truth, Scarecrow retorted. Gore was just ahead of them as he threaded between snug clumps of trees. Pebble dropped her shoulders and nodded. Yeah. Not around the bear. I don't trust him. There's a reason he's the last of his kind. I'm starting to wonder if we're all the last of our kind at this rate, Scarecrow mumbled as he caught up to Gore and Mr. Crow. Even though the air was dark, the path they cut across was thin, and the ground grew treacherous with bramble. Every once in a while, the bear would sniff a tree, lick the ground, or try to peer up into what visible patches of the night sky could be seen. Upon reaching a dense wall of trees, he walked around the lineup and squished through an opening from which a stream of light poured through between a pair of ancient oaks. Despite his size, he was surprisingly agile. Scarecrow followed suit and stepped into a small clearing, surrounded by oaks on all sides. The sun rose high overhead, basking them in light as the moon moved beyond a distant cloud. He rubbed his face, feeling like he had just walked out of a cave as his eyes adjusted. As his eyes adjusted, he watched as Scarecrow's eyes adjusted. He watched Gore move about the makeshift encampment. A tiny bag with scrolls and parchments aplenty lay propped against a tree, while many of the papers were scattered about the clearing, some under rocks, while others were caught in between the trees. Colorful and scratched out sketches of lands adorned many of these parchments. A circle of stones with a metal cup lay dead center, beside a rolled out shining mat on the ground. No, Gore muttered as he scooped up parchment left and right in a frenzy. While Rush, the bear still treated each with precision and tenderness. How many rotations must I have slept? Mr. Crow chomped at one of the parchments, to which the bear knocked him gently on the beak. No. The crow flew off to perch on a branch. With his arms bundled full of parchment, the bear turned towards him and said, Apologies, I forget myself. Sit. Fire may not be necessary. He glanced at the sky. 2 rotations, he muttered. Gore plopped himself against a tree, carefully placing the bundle aside. Sit, please. He rummaged in the pack and fished out a medium-sized, colorfully grainy piece of fruit. While it was a slightly different shape, Scarecrow recognized it as the same food source he encountered back in the Creator's Cave. Using his claw, the grizzly bear carved it into 4 pieces, tossing both to Scarecrow and the third up in the air for Mr. Crow. Unfortunately, this fruit will deplete my inventory. Savor the taste. Scarecrow handed it to Pebble, which was 3 times the pixie size, and set her down on a rock. He bit into the fruit, luscious, joyful, exuberant, delectable. His stomach rumbled before he realized it was gone. Pebble nibbled at hers while eyeing the bear. So, what brings a scarecrow? Breaking the silence. Finally breaking the silence. Gore inquired. Finally breaking the silence, Gore inquired. So, what brings a scarecrow, a pixie, and a crow together? Well, you see, Scarecrow began. You first, Grizzly, Pebble interrupted. I see our reputation precedes me, the Grizzly chuckled. Gore, if you please. I'll call you whatever I want, Grizz, Pebble spat, not taking her eyes off him. There's not much to know about this humble animal, Gore said, pointing at himself. I'm searching for true love. What's that? Scarecrow asked. Gore placed the parchment underneath his arm and rose as he pointed to the sky. Perhaps it's the ray of the rising sun. He spun around and felt an oak tree. Perhaps it's the bark of a mighty oak. The grizzly bear took one giant step towards Scarecrow while being mindful of the pixie. Or perhaps it's you or me. Clutching his chest, he whispered, I have to find true love, whatever it may be. He returned to his spot and plopped on the ground as he sighed heavily. The fate of these lands may depend on it. True love is food, Mr. Crow squawked as he nibbled upon the tree branch beneath his talons. Pebble stuck out her tongue and opened her mouth for a response, but Scarecrow held out his hand. What makes you believe such a thing? He leaned in, curious. He had no clue what this true love was, but the grizzly bear spoke with such passion, fire, and desire, with such passion and conviction. With such passion. Let's go with such conviction. With such passionate conviction. He leaned in curious. He had no clue what this true love was, but this grizzly bear spoke with such passionate conviction that even he wanted to help the bear with his quest. Let's see. He leaned in curious. He had no clue what this true love was, but Gore spoke with such passionate conviction that even he wanted to help the grizzly bear. Help the grizzly bear with his quest. Gore sighed again as he rolled up the parchment, returning it to his pack. Sadly, my memories are like grains of sand, lost in a desert I can't find on a map that no longer exists. Scarecrow watched the grizzly hunch over with a dejected sigh. He glanced up at the crow, who ate at the branch mindlessly. Who now chewed at the branch mindlessly, while the pixie, having lost interest, rummaged in her cloak pockets while whispering to herself. Scarecrow watched the grizzly hunch over with a dejected sigh. He glanced up at the crow, who Mr. Crow. He glanced up at the crow, who now chewed. He glanced up at the crow, who chewed at the branch mindlessly, while the pixie, having lost interest, rummaged in her cloak pockets, whispering to herself. He analyzed each of their faces, trying to find the right words to say, as if it had become his responsibility to cheer them up, but he felt just as lost. You have to believe in something, he muttered to himself as he unloosened the living sack, ignored the teeth, and pulled out the frayed red beanie. The fabric was beyond worn, and the tears were readily apparent. He thumbed the material and pictured the creator boy. Standing up, he took a deep breath. Standing up, Scarecrow took a deep breath while fidgeting with it, trying to find the courage to say anything. I woke up in a field of dead scarecrows, with no recollection of how I got there. I don't know what brought me to life. He felt the brim of his pointed hat he felt the brim of the pointed hat atop his head, or something else entirely. He had Mr. Crow. While you're lost trying to find your nest, I've begun to recall memories of a world full of creators. The others gasped. Before they could ask questions, he got to a knee, commanding Pebble's attention. While you struggle to remember who or where your brother is, I began to recall a young boy that this beanie belonged to. The pixie looked up at him, holding back watery tears. Turning to Gore, he smiled. I may not remember what happened or who he was to me, but I know in here, he whispered, pounding his chest, that I have to find the answer. I have to believe that. I refuse to believe anything else. He spoke, a fire stoking his words. Maybe I can help each of you. He thought of Cloth. My new friends. The three of them were silent as they glanced at one another. Even the pixie was lost for words, which seemed to be a first. What's a few lost memories in the face of tracking down the first demon and putting a stop to the nothingness anyways? Scarecrow added, thoughtfully. What's a few lost memories in the face of tracking down the first demon and putting a stop to the nothingness anyway? Chaos ensued as Gore punched the tree in a bout of rage. Mr. Crow tore through the rest of the branch and crashed to the ground, while Pebble wrapped her arms around herself, rocking back and forth. What lies is this, Scarecrow? Gore questioned, his demeanor tense. You goad me with nonsense about helping when you wish to sacrifice me to that monster. When you wish to sacrifice me to the demon. He grabbed the log and chucked it across the clearing, while Mr. Crow mumbled incoherently alongside Pebble on the ground. No, that's not. He's just a dumb scarecrow, Pebble stated, returning to her senses, standing and brushing herself off. Pebble, come on. You don't understand these lands, Pebble screamed. She hopped under a rock. Everyone is dead. The grizzlies, dead. The birds, dead. The pixies, probably dead. Scarecrow stumbled back. But we, pointing at him, and you, a burnin', brainless scarecrow, think you'll solve all of our problems. Stop the first demon and save the world. You can't even save yourself, she puffed out her chest. Without me, you would be dead. In a frenzy of flapping, Mr. Crow kicked off into the air as his voice rose, his tone becoming slower, ancient even. Whither to despair in the face of death, younglings? Mr. Crow chirped as he flapped over to land on Scarecrow's shoulder. Cripple us with defeat, youngling? Mr. Crow continued. Face the unknown together, youngling, and defeat shall be ours. Mr. Crow chortled at the sky, spinning his head around in circles, once more lost in his own world. Scarecrow patted Mr. Crow on the head reassuringly. Arms crossed, Pebble snorted. Deal's a deal, Scarecrow. I take you to the brazier and you give me the ruby gemstone. After that, sacrifice yourself to the demon for all I care. Followed by a deep breath, she muttered. Friends are fiction anyway. Scarecrow felt his chest, looking down at the pixie, not with anger but sadness. He stepped closer to her and got to a knee. Holding out his hand, he waited until their eyes were locked and leaned in with a deep-seated smile. Friendship is the only thing we have right now. Pebble's glare dissipated as she dropped her arms, digging them into her pocket while maintaining eye contact with him. She flipped her hood up, kicking at the ground. I'm poking her head up slightly. Pebble's glare dissipated as she dropped her arms, digging them into her pockets while maintaining eye contact with him. She flipped her hood up, kicking at the ground. She tried to say, poking her head up slightly as her ember green eyes grew watery. Tiny hands moved around cloak pockets with increased tension. Her tiny hands wiggled within her tiny hands moved, fidgeted within her cloak pockets. Her tiny hands fidgeted within her cloak pockets as she stepped onto his hand. Within her ethereal cloak pockets, as she stepped onto his hand, smacked a fist against her chest and pronounced, "I'm sorry, but I need to find my brother." Her expression intermingled bravado, confidence, and fear. "I'll help you." Scarecrow waited until her frown was enticed by the barest tone of a smile. Dumb Scarecrow. Spinning around, she plopped on his hand silently as they watched Gore pack his things. "Which brazier are you taking them to, little pixie?" the grizzly bear asked as he finished packing the rest of his parchments, calming himself down. "The Coliseum of the Last," Gore whistled. "You would take them into a tribe war. You would take them into a tribal war, last held by the Wolf King, if memory serves." Pebble pounded her chest. "I ain't afraid of no burning wolves. Eat them for breakfast." "I'll eat them for breakfast." "I'm sure you aren't, mighty pixie. You know, the pixies were once thought to be purveyors of the essences." "I knew that," Pebble retorted all too quickly, as Scarecrow placed her upon his opposite shoulder. Gore turned to them with a deep-seated sigh and a nod, recollected. "Again, apologies for my temper. I are a grizzly," Pebble mumbled. He nodded with a resolute look. "Thank you for saving me, Scarecrow. Sincerely." Gore offered a gentle smile. "I will not accompany you. However, I will not accompany you. A grizzly always trusts their gut, and any dealings with the wolves or the demon would be a disservice to my quest. Should we encounter each other again, my debt will be repaid. That I promise." Scarecrow nodded with a bittersweet smile. "I understand, Gore. I hope you find this true love." Fingering the pack over his shoulder, the grizzly rolled his neck. "I'm sure the pixie knows the right path." He said, nodding toward a worn-out trail on the opposite side of the clearing. "But should you follow this direction, it might lead to Forest's Edge." Scarecrow bowed his head, trying not to show his dismay at the bear's rejection. Gore paused and winked. "A great bearlosopher once said, 'Belief's cornerstone is survival.'" He slung the pack over his shoulder and walked past them, stopping at the edge of the clearing. And word of warning, Scarecrow. Those burdened with kindness or false hope don't survive in the lands of the last. He left his mouth agape like he wanted to say something else, but shut it and glanced up at the sky before vanishing beyond the tree line. Scarecrow looked to either of his companions. Mr. Crow had returned to singing under his breath, while Pebble was lost deep in thought. He looked at the clearing and whispered, "Together for now, friends." Even though neither of them said a word, the pixie nudged deeper into his shoulder, while the crow rolled onto his side. It was all that needed to be said. Aw, I still love the chapter. And that is the chapter. Man, what'd y'all think? Hopefully you were entertained by it. Man, what a chapter. Yeah, I still feel like it's a heartwarming. I was like, I think a little bit. Yeah, man. Whew, I am so happy with how that chapter turned out. And it's interesting because the chapter itself was really designed to be I knew it had to be it needed to be a lull, so I needed it to not be a lot of action, but it had to accomplish a few things. We had to introduce Gore as a character, of which Gore becomes a very important character soon. And then we also had to set up I also kind of needed to find a way to really unify Scarecrow, Pebble, and Crow, because they've now gone on a couple adventures over the course of the past about 5 to 6 chapters. And I think this was a good binding moment, while also speaking to Scarecrow's weakness. Scarecrow is very, very what's the word? Scarecrow's very shoot, why am I blanking on the word? Scarecrow is very not, I mean, naive in a sense. He's very like is trying to help others with this new sense of belief. Um, but what's interesting is every time he tries to help others, he's very much been severely punished. And for those of you that know what the next story arc is, we know it's only going to get worse for him. How do you choose kindness in a world where it is survival for the fittest? So I was really glad that it came across where Scarecrow tries to have that moment, but then the reality, the truth, the reality of it is very much reminded. And even despite that reality, he recognized the one true fact about it is that the only thing that they really have in this specific moment is that they have each other. Regardless of what's going to happen, they have the three of them. And that's really about to be put to the test. So many of the previous chapters, there's been so much action and so many things happening. So it was good to find this balancing of this kind of like low moment of them sitting around a campfire. I knew that I really had to find a moment to unify Scarecrow, Pebble, and Crow before we go into this next major plot arc. And I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Hopefully you enjoyed as well. Hopefully you were able to get a little entertainment. And of course, out of our one of our upcoming major characters, Gore the Last Grizzly, on a quest for true love. Nice, Courtney. Like, yay, finish the issue. Now to send it off to alpha readers and move on to chapter 7. Nice. That is what's up. Making progress, my friend. So glad that you've been able to push and make some substantial progress. Really, really cool. Yeah, so I feel like we were able to make some good progress here today. I'm feeling pretty good about it. For those of you who want to know more about Scarecrow, by the way, if you enjoyed that chapter, you just want to learn more, you want to sign up for more updates with Scarecrow, go check out the Last Scarecrow website. I'll drop it in the chat. You can always sign up if you want to check out the newsletter, but that kind of gives you more details about the book. My intended publication date is May 15th. So I'll see if I'm able to hit that with the work that still needs to be done. But all progress is good progress. So we're going to push ahead and see what we can see. Yep. So I think that's what I got for y'all today. Don't forget, for those of you who need feedback on your story, tomorrow is the next episode of the Story and Critique stream. So if you need to get feedback, all you have to do is submit for the critique show form. I will drop that in the chat. Here we go. So for anybody who's needing feedback, go submit in the Story and Critique Show form. It's a free submission. It costs nothing. Basically what you can expect, I will do a live reading and a live critique, similar to what you expect from an alpha beta reading. This is one of our most popular streams. I've done well over 250 story critiques live. They're all cold readings. I do not read them beforehand. And yeah, so really, really fun. It'll be tomorrow, 1 Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Submit now. The sooner you sign up, the more likely you have a chance of your story being read. Because it's the beginning of the year, we tend to get a high volume of submissions. So the sooner, the better. So definitely submit. I'm very much looking forward to the first Story and Critique show of 2026. So this critique show is definitely going to be awesome. Very, very much so. And yeah, I think that's all that I got for you today, my friends. If you enjoyed the stream, tap that like button. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write
Right
now.
Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now.